Commander Lyra Valdine stood at the observation deck of the Zalarian scout ship Starweaver, her iridescent scales shifting colors as she watched the approaching human space station. After decades of distant observation, the Galactic Council had finally authorized first contact with this peculiar species. The humans had achieved faster-than-light travel remarkably quickly, but their methods often seemed chaotic and unpredictable. Approaching docking vector, Commander, announced Navigation Officer Kex, his tentacles dancing across the holographic controls. The humans have granted us clearance. Lyra nodded, her crown of sensory filaments rippling with anticipation. Remember the protocol. We observe, we document, we engage diplomatically. These humans are an unknown factor. The Starweaver glided smoothly into the docking bay of International Space Station Alpha. Through the viewports, Lyra could see human crew members floating about their duties with surprising agility despite their rigid endoskeletons. The first meeting was scheduled in the station's conference module. Lyra selected a small team, herself, Science Officer Ren, and Cultural Specialist Tara. As they proceeded through the airlock, their environmental suits automatically adjusted to the station's atmosphere. Station Commander Marcus Reed greeted them, accompanied by his senior staff. He was a tall human with dark skin and gray-streaked hair, wearing a blue uniform adorned with patches and insignia. "Welcome to Station Alpha," Reed said, extending his hand in what their briefings had identified as a traditional greeting gesture. Lyra reciprocated carefully with her scaled hand. "We're honored to host the first official Zalarian delegation." The meeting proceeded smoothly at first, with both sides sharing basic cultural and technological information. Then Lyra noticed something peculiar. The humans seemed to be consuming small metal containers filled with some kind of liquid. Their vital signs showed periodic spikes in neural activity and energy output. Science Officer Ren leaned closer, whispering in their native tongue. "Commander, my readings indicate these beverages contain powerful stimulants. Yet they consume them casually, even recreationally." Lyra's scales shifted to a deeper blue of concern. "Request clarification about the beverages," she instructed Cultural Specialist Tara. Commander Reed smiled when asked. "Oh, these? Just energy drinks. Helps us stay alert during long shifts. Would you like to try one?" The Zalarians exchanged glances. Their research had indicated humans were remarkably resistant to toxins, but the readings from these energy drinks suggested they were closer to spacecraft fuel than any reasonable consumable substance. "You ingest this voluntarily?" Lyra asked carefully. "Sure do," replied Lieutenant Rodriguez, another human officer. She crushed her empty can with one hand. "This stuff keeps us going. Want to see something cool?" Before anyone could respond, she pushed off from her seat and executed a perfect triple backflip in the zero gravity, landing gracefully. "Couldn't have done that without my morning boost." The Zalarian sensory filaments all bristled in alarm. The humans had seemingly weaponized stimulants into some kind of performance enhancement system, yet treated it as casually as drinking water. As the meeting continued, Lyra noticed more concerning details. Nearly every human crew member had these containers at their workstations. Some humans showed visible signs of stimulant influence, rapid speech, increased movement, dilated pupils. Yet they all acted as if this was perfectly normal. "Fascinating and disturbing," Ren commented during a brief recess. "Their entire station operation seems to run on these chemical enhancers. The potential applications, and dangers, are staggering. We must report this to the Council," Tara agreed. "The humans have developed a unique relationship with regulated substances. It could revolutionize our understanding of xenobiology." Lyra watched as Commander Reed crushed another empty can, his movement still precise despite consuming what their sensors indicated was his fourth dose. "Indeed. But we must proceed carefully. If humans can casually consume what our species would consider high-grade stimulants, What else are they capable of? The initial diplomatic meeting concluded successfully, but Lyra knew this was just the beginning. The mystery of human energy drinks would soon become a major focus of xenobiological research, and a source of considerable concern for the Galactic Council. As the Zalarian team prepared to depart, Lieutenant Rodriguez offered them a 6-pack of various energy drink brands as a cultural exchange gift. Lyra accepted it politely, already drafting in her mind the extensive warning labels it would require in their research lab. The Starweaver undocked smoothly, but Lyra's mind was racing faster than their engines. Humans had casually handed them substances that would need to be classified as controlled materials in Zalarian space. Either humans were far more physically resilient than initially believed, or they had a remarkable disregard for their own biochemical safety. Neither option was particularly comforting. The Zalarian research facility on Proxima Station hummed with activity as senior researcher Vex examined the array of human energy drink containers through reinforced quarantine glass. After 3 weeks of careful analysis, the Zalarian Science Council had finally approved limited testing protocols. Recording Trial Experiment X-147, Vex announced, their scales shifting to the deep purple of scientific focus. Subject sample contains compounds classified as caffeine, taurine, and various synthetic stimulants. Beginning controlled exposure test. Behind them, junior researcher Nim carefully monitored a bank of sensors. The testing chamber contained a standard-issue maintenance robot, its fuel cell replaced with a diluted energy drink solution. They had lost 3 robots to previous experiments when using full-strength samples. Initiating power cycle, Nim reported, their sensory filaments twitching with excitement. The robot hummed to life, its servos whirring faster than normal specifications. Energy output at 130% of baseline. That's impossible. Vex scales rippled with interest. Humans drink this at full concentration. Multiple times daily? According to their public data networks, some consume multiple units within single planetary rotations, Nim confirmed. They even combine different brands for what they call extreme effects. The robot began moving with unprecedented speed, completing its standard maintenance routine in half the usual time. Then its movements became erratic. Sparks flew from its joints. Power surge. Nim called out. Systems redlining. The robot spun in circles, its manipulator arms flailing, before shorting out in a shower of sparks. The room filled with the scent of burnt circuitry and artificial sweeteners. Fascinating, Vex muttered, recording the results. The human beverage overloaded systems rated for industrial power cells. Yet humans consume this recreationally? That evening, in their private laboratory, Vex made a decision that would alter the course of human-Zalarian relations. They had obtained permission to conduct one biological compatibility test. The Council had assumed they would use cell cultures or tissue samples. But Vex was determined to understand these drinks' full effects. Computer, seal laboratory and engage privacy protocols, Vex commanded. They removed a small vial of diluted energy drink from their secure storage. Beginning unauthorized trial B1. Subject, self. Vex's hand trembled slightly as they raised the vial. Every safety protocol warned against this. But their scientific curiosity overwhelmed their caution. They consumed the sample in one swift motion. For several minutes, nothing happened. Vex was about to record the trial as a failure when suddenly their sensory filaments began to tingle. Their scales shifted rapidly through colors they had never expressed before. Energy surged through their system like liquid lightning. Incredible, they gasped, their voice unusually rapid. Neural activity increased by 40%. Motor response enhanced. Thought processes accelerated. Must document everything. Over the next hour, Vex filled 3 data tablets with observations, conducted a week's worth of experiments, and reorganized their entire laboratory storage system. Their movements became increasingly erratic as they talked to themselves at twice normal speed. The effects were still going strong when junior researcher Nim arrived for their next shift. They found Vex hanging upside down from a ceiling conduit, using all 4 arms to simultaneously conduct different experiments. Senior researcher Nim exclaimed in horror. "What have you done?" "Nim." "Perfect timing." Vex dropped to the floor with impossible agility. "You must try this. I've made so many breakthroughs. Did you know we can improve quantum processor efficiency by 300% by running them on this? I've already modified half the lab's equipment." Nim backed away slowly, reaching for the alarm panel. "Sir, you're not authorized for biological testing. Your scales are strobing. Authorization limits progress," Vex declared, bouncing from wall to wall. "Humans have unlocked the secret to hyper-efficiency. We must embrace it." The facility's security system finally registered the unauthorized experiment and began blaring alerts. Medical teams rushed in wearing hazmat gear, but Vex evaded them with enhanced speed and reflexes. It took 3 stun blasts to finally subdue the enlightened researcher. The incident report reached the Galactic Council within hours. Emergency sessions were called. The human energy drinks were immediately classified as potential security threats. But it was too late, word had spread through the scientific community. If one drink could do this to a senior researcher, imagine what they could achieve with proper research. Across Solarian space, laboratories began requesting samples for controlled studies. Black markets emerged overnight. The humans had unleashed something they couldn't have anticipated, an alien society discovering caffeine for the first time. As Vex recovered in medical quarantine, they couldn't stop grinning. "Worth it," they muttered, their scales still occasionally flickering with residual energy. "Totally worth it." The staff had to confiscate 3 more hidden vials from Vex quarters. Each time, the researcher just smiled wider. They had tasted the power of human efficiency enhancement, and they knew there was no going back. The galaxy would never be the same. Ambassador James Sullivan stared at the holographic reports flooding his office at the Earth Embassy on Zalaria Prime. In just 3 months, the energy drink situation had spiraled beyond anyone's expectations. Black market trading rings were popping up across 7 star systems. Underground boost lounges were appearing in major Zalarian cities. Even some Galactic Council members were rumored to be experimenting with what they called human power potions. Another raid on a synthetic caffeine lab in the Centauri sector, his AI assistant reported. And 3 more cases of Zalarian executives using energy drinks to work triple shifts. Sullivan massaged his temples. "Any word from Earth Central?" "They're still debating classification protocols. The beverage industry is fighting any attempt to restrict exports. They're calling it an unprecedented market opportunity." The door chimed, admitting High Commissioner Zara of the Zalarian Health Authority. Her scales were a troubled gray-green. "Ambassador, we have a situation. An entire corporate research division just dosed themselves with something called Monster Ultra. They've been awake for 6 days, filing patents every hour. We can't keep up with the paperwork." "At least they're being productive," Sullivan muttered. "They've started communicating exclusively in mathematical equations. And their scales are glowing in colors we didn't know were possible." Before Sullivan could respond, his communication panel lit up. The stern face of Admiral Perloth, head of Zalarian Space Security, appeared. "Ambassador, we've intercepted another smuggling vessel. This one was carrying something labeled G-Fuel. My officers made the mistake of sampling it. They're still running threat simulations at 4 times normal speed." "How many officers were affected?" "All of them. They're calling it tactical enhancement training and requesting more samples for further security analysis." Sullivan slumped in his chair. Humanity had faced many challenges in joining the galactic community, but none quite like this. Who could have predicted that their casual relationship with stimulants would cause such chaos? The situation reached crisis point during the emergency Galactic Council session. Representatives from 12 species gathered to address what many were calling the human energy crisis. The council chamber hummed with tension and more than a few illegally caffeinated delegates. Council leader Vox, a usually stoic Arcturian, seemed unusually twitchy. The spread of these human substances must be contained. We have reports of productivity spikes causing market instability. Sleep cycles being ignored. Entire research teams achieving in days what should take months. Isn't increased productivity good? Asked the human representative, Dr. Harrison. Not when it's powered by unauthorized stimulants, declared the Proximan delegate. Their tentacles were vibrating slightly, and they had an empty can of Red Bull poorly hidden in their robes. A Zalarian medical officer presented disturbing statistics. Energy drink consumption had spread to 17% of their population. Emergency rooms were dealing with cases of caffeine-induced hyperactivity. Young Zalarians were gathering for illicit boost parties. And yet, noted Dr. Harrison, humans have managed these substances for centuries without societal collapse. Your species evolved with these compounds, Council leader Vox countered. The rest of us need time to adapt. We must establish controls. The debate raged for hours. Some delegates called for a complete ban on human energy drinks. Others argued for regulated distribution. A few, notably those whose scales were suspiciously bright, suggested universal access for research purposes. The crisis peaked when a group of caffeinated Zalarian activists stormed the council chamber, demanding unrestricted access to what they called evolution juice. Their scales strobing like disco lights, they scattered cans of various energy drinks to the delegates while chanting, "Power to the people." In the ensuing chaos, several council members who had never tried energy drinks seized the opportunity to gather evidence. The resulting 6-hour policy debate broke all records for speed-talking in council history. Sullivan watched the proceedings with a mixture of horror and fascination. Humanity had unintentionally introduced an agent of chaos into the careful order of galactic society. The only question now was whether they could help their alien neighbors adapt before the situation spun completely out of control. As he drafted his report to Earth Central, Sullivan couldn't help but smile at the irony. Humans had expected first contact to involve discussions of faster-than-light travel or advanced weapons. Instead, they were becoming known across the galaxy as the species that had weaponized productivity through aggressive beverage engineering. The real challenge was only beginning. They needed to find a way to help alien species understand the concept of caffeine tolerance before the entire galactic community turned into a bunch of jittery, over-caffeinated insomniacs. The Joint Species Research Institute on Mars buzzed with activity as human and Zalarian scientists worked to understand the effects of energy drinks on alien physiologies. Dr. Rachel Thompson supervised as her Zalarian colleague, lead researcher Nix, carefully measured microdoses of caffeine. Fascinating, Nix said, their scales shifting through shades of blue. Your species developed natural tolerance mechanisms over thousands of years. Our bodies have no such adaptations. The laboratory housed dozens of projects studying everything from caffeine metabolism to taurine sensitivity. Holographic displays showed the molecular structures of various energy drink compounds, while quantum computers ran millions of simulations on alien biochemistry. A junior researcher burst into the lab, their scales flashing urgent orange. The Arcturian test group. Something's happening. In the observation chamber, the volunteer Arcturians were experiencing unprecedented effects. Their crystalline bodies, usually a cool blue, pulsed with rainbow frequencies. Their natural ability to process solar energy had somehow synchronized with the caffeine, creating a cascade effect. They're exceeding normal energy conversion rates by 300%, Rachel noted, checking the readings. But their crystal matrices are becoming unstable. The crisis highlighted a crucial discovery: each species reacted differently to energy drinks. The Proximans developed temporary telepathy. The Viridians started photosynthesizing at night. The Quantari could suddenly perceive quantum states. We're not just dealing with stimulants, Nix realized. These compounds are acting as catalysts for latent biological capabilities. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young human grad student, noticing patterns in the data, suggested that the drinks weren't causing new abilities, they were accelerating natural evolutionary processes. Rachel and Nix worked around the clock, fueled by coffee and determination. They discovered that controlled exposure could help alien species develop safe tolerance mechanisms. The key was starting with extremely diluted doses and gradually increasing concentration over months. Their findings revolutionized xenobiology. The human practice of caffeine training became a standard part of interspecies medical protocols. Specialized energy drinks were developed for different physiologies, leading to the galaxy's first cross-species beverage industry. But more importantly, the research fostered unprecedented cooperation between humans and aliens. Working together to solve the energy drink crisis had created bonds of understanding that transcended biological differences. As Rachel watched Nix calmly sipping their specially formulated Zalarian's energy drink, she smiled. Sometimes the greatest diplomatic breakthroughs came from the most unexpected sources, even if those sources came in brightly colored aluminum cans. 1 year after the Great Caffeine Crisis, the Galactic Trade Center on Europa hosted the first interstellar beverage summit. The massive expo hall displayed hundreds of species-specific energy drinks, each carefully formulated through the Joint Research Initiative. Commander Lyra Valdine, now serving as Chief of Xenological Relations, stood at the podium addressing representatives from 50 star systems. Her scales shimmered with their natural iridescence, no artificial enhancement needed. Today marks a milestone in galactic cooperation, she announced. Through understanding and adaptation, we've transformed a potential crisis into an opportunity for growth. The new regulations were elegant in their simplicity. All energy drinks required species-specific labeling. First-time users underwent mandatory tolerance training. Black market distribution carried heavy penalties. But most importantly, legal distribution channels ensured safe, controlled access for all species. Ambassador Sullivan, watching from the audience, reflected on how far they'd come. The exhibition floor buzzed with activity as beings from across the galaxy sampled their customized beverages. Arcturians demonstrated their new crystal-stable energy drink that doubled as an emergency power source. Proximans shared their telepathy-safe formula that enhanced communication without causing uncontrolled thought broadcasting. The greatest success story was the Zalarian Regulatory Council's Gradual Enhancement Program. New users started with drinks containing 1,000th the caffeine of standard human beverages, slowly building tolerance over months. The program had 0 incidents of adverse reactions and a 98% satisfaction rate. In the research sector, the collaboration had sparked a renaissance in xenobiology. Understanding how different species processed stimulants led to breakthroughs in medicine, biotechnology, and even faster-than-light travel efficiency. The humans didn't just give us energy drinks, Lyra concluded her speech. They taught us to approach the unknown with curiosity rather than fear. Sometimes the most powerful innovations come in the smallest packages, even if those packages contain enough caffeine to power a small starship. The audience laughed, then applauded as she raised a toast with her specially formulated Zalarian energy drink. Across the galaxy, beings of all species were learning to harness the power of human beverage engineering, not as a shortcut to productivity, but as a tool for controlled enhancement. The crisis had evolved into a celebration of diversity. Each species now had access to safe stimulants tailored to their biology, while humans gained deeper understanding of their own unique relationship with caffeine. As the summit concluded, Sullivan met with Lyra in the observation lounge overlooking Europa's ice fields. They shared a quiet moment, each with their species-appropriate drink in hand. "Did you ever imagine," Sullivan asked, "that first contact would lead to this?" Lyra's scales rippled with amusement. "That humans would conquer the galaxy not with weapons or technology, but with caffeinated beverages? Never. But perhaps that's the greatest lesson. True progress comes not from domination, but from learning to share our strengths and understand our differences." They watched as ships departed the trade center, carrying carefully regulated supplies of energy drinks to every corner of known space. The Great Caffeine Crisis had become the Great Caffeine Compromise, proving that even the most chaotic human inventions could bring order to the galaxy, with proper warning labels, of course.